I see no one else seeking recognition. Do you have an amendment, as I understand? Oh, I'm sorry. The gentleman from California is recognized next to strike the last one.
Mr. Chairman, first I remind my colleague that there's a very well-established legal process to assure that our laws are not being abused, and that is being taken seriously by all of the advocacy groups for these illegal immigrants. But I want to address a more fundamental question. In an article last July, Axios published an article entitled, "There Needs to Be Blood. Democrats voters tell them to get shot in Trump resistance push." Well, that bloodlust has been turned against ICE officers enforcing the law over the past year. A member of this House even doxed an ICE agent to a violent mob in Carpinteria, California, who then set upon him with rocks and sent him to the hospital. An assassination team of leftists launched a coordinated attack on an ICE facility, wounding an ICE agent and, ironically, killing an illegal migrant in their custody. Violent attacks on ICE agents have increased more than 1,300% in the last year. There has been a 3,200% increase in vehicular assaults against ICE officers. Doxing of ICE agents for the purpose of harassing them and their families has become a common practice among the left. I've spoken to many of them. They don't want to wear masks. They have to protect themselves and their families. And now we have the tragic death of Nicole Good, a leftist activist in Minneapolis. Now, the Democrats tell us not to believe our own eyes, but that takes a special kind of gullibility when so many video images exist. And what they clearly show is an ICE vehicle attempting to leave a near riot condition dominated by an increasingly violent mob. A left-wing activist pulls her car in front of the ICE vehicle, blocking its path. Uniformed ICE agents then issue a lawful order for her to exit her car. Instead of complying with this order, she shifts into reverse, tearing the agent's hand from the door, and then throws it into drive and hits the gas as the car is aimed directly at another officer, grazing him as he fires into the vehicle. Now, her apologists on the left say she was simply fleeing arrest. She didn't deserve to be shot. But that's not why she was shot. She was shot because an ICE officer had a split second to assess the lethal threat of a 2,000-pound vehicle a few feet away and accelerating toward him. As we watch these violent attacks on ICE officers and the performance of their duties, we have to ask ourselves, what gives people like Nicole Good and the others in these violent mobs the idea that it's perfectly okay to attack ICE officers, obstruct the enforcement of federal laws, and place themselves in danger when they do so? Where do they get these ideas? Perhaps it's exactly the kind of rhetoric we've just heard from our Democratic colleagues. One just called our ICE officers goons. Another just called them an occupying force. Well, what are we to make of that? An occupying force? Well, it's entirely legitimate to take up arms against an occupying force, but that's exactly the opposite of what ICE actually is. ICE is not an occupying force. Rather, it is faithfully enforcing the laws as Congress has written them. But the Democrats have repeatedly suggested, including in this room today, that they're an occupying force, in the words of the former Democratic chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. How many Democrats in this House have called ICE murderers, Gestapo, Nazi stormtroopers? I've lost count. Most people see these statements as ravings of demagogues, and indeed they are. But there's a lunatic fringe in our society that hangs on their every word and acts on those words. Nicole Good lost her life listening to such drivel, taking it seriously, and then acting on it by actively obstructing federal law enforcement by blocking their path, refusing lawful orders, and ultimately accelerating her car toward other officers standing nearby. What her intentions were is irrelevant. What the officers saw and reacted to is quite clear. So for the sake of your own supporters, I appeal to my Democratic colleagues to weigh their words more carefully. Consider the impact they're having on a gullible and unstable fringe in their base. And I'll repeat to them what I said the other day, Abraham Lincoln's words to the Democrats of his day. There is no grievance that is a fit object for redress by mob law. I again remind my Democratic colleagues that ICE is faithfully enforcing the laws that this Congress wrote. If you don't like them, You sit in the very institution with the power to change them. All you have to do is make your case to the American people that our borders should again be open to millions of migrants, and we should change our laws to accommodate this. But in a nation that exists by the rule of law, you cannot ignore those laws or vilify, attack, and even assault the very officials who are enforcing them. It's stunning that members of the House Judiciary Committee need to be reminded of this. I yield back.
Well said. The gentleman yields back. I think the gentleman from North Carolina was next in the queue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just was reflecting a little bit on the 5th anniversary of January 6th and how history is being rewritten by this administration. I'm very proud that my senior senator, a Republican, has insisted on having the January 6th plaque displayed, because even though we may not agree on politics all the time, we certainly agree on the truth. And with that, I yield the balance of my time to the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I couldn't disagree more with the gentleman from California's characterization of the events that happened in Minnesota last week, and continue. But it does point to the fact that when we disagree about whether ICE is faithfully enforcing or executing the laws of the United States as opposed to executing Americans, it's all the more important that this committee engage in oversight and hearings so that we can clarify the facts, particularly when there's been this rush to judgment and everybody's engaging in confirmation bias. So I just disagree with so much that was just said. But again, if we were having a full and fair investigation, then we might be in a very different place. Look, the reason I sought to be recognized when our colleague from Wyoming was speaking was she repeatedly said that why would anyone oppose deportation of people who are committing fraud in the United States? And I think it's really important that we clarify that no one is opposing deportation of people who commit fraud, assuming they're actually convicted of committing fraud. That's already the law. Nobody's opposing that. What she critically left out, and what many of our colleagues have left out of their characterization here, is the word allegedly. Just because someone accuses you of a crime that is a deportable offense doesn't mean that you committed it. And in the atmosphere that we're currently in, where we're seeing false accusations being made on a daily basis, I think it's even more important that we're standing up for the Fifth Amendment and for due process to make sure that people are not being railroaded and unjustly accused and deported and imprisoned in
Will the gentlelady yield?
Of issues. No, I'm going to yield back to Ms. Roth.
Yield.
I'm sorry. Yes, to Ms. Jayapal.
I yield, you can yield to her. She can have the rest of my time, and you can
You have to
work
do
it
it
out.
as the owner of the time. You have to.
Yes, it's fine.
Thank you. I just wanted to very quickly say, because Chairman Jordan is back in the chair, that we have worked very closely together on privacy issues with FISA. We've taken on our own leaderships on both sides, and I would just ask you, Mr. Chairman, to look at that video of ICE agents and Border Patrol battering down the door of a resident in Minneapolis without a warrant, because, as you well know, the Fourth Amendment protects us from search and seizure, illegal search and seizure, and this is an issue, I think, that we should be able to have the same privacy coalition take on, despite what the president is saying about these things. There are certain places where our values as members of the Judiciary Committee, and you've been very strong on this on privacy, have to come first, despite whatever rhetoric is going on. And I'll tell you, they can do that in Minnesota, they can do it in Ohio, they can do it in Washington, they can do it in any one of the states. And you might like who they're doing it to today, you may not like who they're doing it to tomorrow. And we have stuck together in making sure that we don't allow it to happen to just some people. Even in FISA, we've done that. And I think we need to do that in this case, and so I would ask you to work with me to make sure we take on the Fourth Amendment at this point in a very serious way, given what we just saw. And I yield back to the gentlelady from North Carolina.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I appreciate the comments from the gentleman from Washington, and I will take a look at that video. I apologize, I had a 10-minute meeting I had to go to.
I just have an inquiry of the chair.
Yep.
This is the second time that Ms. Jayapal's played a video. She played one last week, I think. I have no idea where these videos come from. I have no idea if they're verified. We have no background on them. And you solicited a response directly from the majority. And again, it looks like any other episode of Cops. I have no idea where this stuff is coming from or what the basis is of it. And I just was running if the committee could at least check these out ahead of time.
Fair enough.
Delete the profanity, too.
Yeah, well said. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized, and then we'll go to the gentleman from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield to the gentlelady from Wyoming.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to read the bill itself, and it states that there's been allegations that you don't even have to have a conviction for these deportation orders. It specifically states that you do. It says right in the bill. I mean, you can read it yourself if anybody's interested in going to the actual language of what we're debating. Defrauding the United States government or the unlawful receipt of public benefits. Any alien who has been convicted of or who admits having committed or who admits committing acts which constitute the essential elements of a variety of different types of fraud. That's subsection AJ, and then you look at BG, deportability, defrauding the United States government or the unlawful receipt of public benefits. Any alien who has been convicted of or who admits having committed or who admits committing acts which constitute the essential elements of certain types of fraud. So I don't understand how in the world you're saying that we don't have to have a conviction or an admission of guilt. I also want to describe just some of the fraud that we're talking about here.
Do you wish to engage in a colloquy or no?
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Wyoming.
Okay, will you yield? I mean, you asked a question.
No, I have a few other
The
things
time
that I want
belongs
to address
to
here.
me.
That's right. The time belongs to the gentleman from Wisconsin.
In May 2025, a Cuban national was sentenced to prison for his role in a scheme to defraud Medicare of more than $3.2 million through a sham durable medical equipment company. In February 2025, federal law enforcement officers arrested 5 illegal aliens who allegedly used information from skimmed electronic benefit transfer cards to clone counterfeit cards and steal funds that had been dispersed to low-income individuals by the state of California. In 2019, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Mississippi announced the prosecution of 119 illegal aliens for crimes including misusing Social Security numbers of American citizens. In June 2025, an ICE worksite enforcement operation in Nebraska uncovered approximately 70 illegal aliens who were using stolen Social Security numbers and identities to unlawfully obtain wages, health benefits, and employment authorization, which affected more than 100 victims. Medicare, SNAP, and Social Security, all programs that millions of Americans rely on for assistance, are being defrauded, leaving citizens unable to obtain necessary benefits while also contributing to runaway spending. Waste, fraud, and abuse within these programs symbolize nothing more than the blatant theft from the American people. If someone engages in this kind of fraud and they are convicted or they admit they committed these acts, they should be defrauded. That's all the bill does. All of the discussion about ICE is just a red herring and an attempt to deflect attention from what the majority is attempting to do, which is to protect the American citizen. That's who we're trying to protect. With that, I yield back to Mr. Tiffany.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it is about time that this happened. So as someone who is right adjacent to the Twin Cities, my district is just 15 miles away. I've seen these stories for a long time, and this has been going on for years. And I would urge people to check out a blog called Powerline blog. They have been writing about this for years. This is not something that's new. And what is new? In the last year, we had a president who took this seriously, who said that this fraud cannot continue. And we cannot continue to have these people with long rap sheets that are just running around the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And by the way, it matters because just 15 miles away, sometimes they cross the border, and we've seen a police officer killed by someone from Minnesota after a high-speed chase. So we see these type of things, and it spills out around the rest of the country. But this is not new. This has been going on for a long time. And I would urge all of you that averted your eyes to what has been going on in Minneapolis and Minnesota generally, I would urge you to go back and look at what has just been a trail of fraud that has been going on for far longer than just the last year. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank my colleagues from Wisconsin and Wyoming for returning to the actual subject matter of this markup. My Democrat colleagues seem to want to focus on vilifying an ICE agent who was seriously injured just a year ago by an illegal alien driving a vehicle, vilifying that ICE officer who defended himself by being assaulted by a lethal weapon, a moving vehicle accelerating toward him. But one of my colleagues earlier said that this, this is just this bill is just because of the fraud in Minnesota. While the fraud in Minnesota is not unique and it's not a one-time occurrence, it is unique in its size and scope. What one prosecutor called industrial-level fraud, over $9 billion. But there are other examples. In May of 2025, a Cuban national was sentenced to prison for his role in defrauding Medicare of more than $3.2 million in a sham durable medical equipment scheme. In February 2025, federal officers arrested 5 illegal aliens who were using cloned EBT cards to steal funds that had been dispersed to low-income individuals in California. And of course, illegal aliens all the time commit fraud in entering and remaining in this country with illegal documents and others. It has become clear that the Biden administration created a system ridden with corruption. This eroded public trust and hammered American taxpayers, and it needs to be fixed. That's why I am proud to be an original co-sponsor of this bill. This is common sense legislation that will ensure that illegal aliens who defraud the United States taxpayer of benefits are held accountable through deportation and inadmissibility. Blue state mismanagement should not force taxpayers in states like mine to foot the bill. This abuse must stop, and this legislation is a critical step forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.